Welcome back to the United Pubcast for your Europa League preview. Manchester United against Sevilla. I have a feeling this is the quarterfinal. As said in the Europa League, it's been hard to keep track of round of 32, round of 16. The biggest match in the Europa League was a round of 32 match against Barcelona. So I'm assuming this is a quarterfinal, as we always get a Spanish team, as it seems. The recent history of Manchester United in European football, and so a bit of a match preview today with Larry and everyone in the live chat, but also discuss a few things in regards to the Jude Bellingham news, whether that affects Manchester United or not, and obviously the Glazers in terms of this sale and ownership sort of discussion has gone quite sort of silent. However, maybe that is a good thing, which we've discussed in previous weeks. We'd always thought when this went silent, okay, that maybe means things are sort of happening behind the scenes, but now we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. So always up for a discussion around the ownership. But Larry, good to see you, mate. Feels a while since United have played. We've got a game in 2 days against Sevilla. Maybe it's just me. But how are you feeling ahead of a big match? Because I'm all aboard sort of, yes, we need top four. But for me, as a lot of people do know, it's about a trophy for me. And I'd much prefer the Europa League over a league position.
Yeah, I understand that. And I'm good, mate. I mean, yeah, it has felt a while since United played. Obviously, we played Saturday night. What are we, Wednesday? It's been a long week. And when you're used to seeing 2 to 3 games every 7 days, it is a long time. But pumped for it. And I'm with you 100%. Look, I think the league position is important, but you can't argue with trophies. When you win trophies, I mean, the proof is in the pudding to speak to your success. That's what history will tell you. History won't look back and say you finished third, you finished fourth. First, and then there's everyone else. And at the end of the day, if United can come home with the Europa League, I remember we were together at the pub, actually, when United won the Europa League under Jose. And just the atmosphere that day, the buzz, there's nothing like winning a trophy. You don't celebrate finishing top 4, but you celebrate a trophy like it's your own team.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we'll get into all things previous to how Eric Ten Hag will approach it. Will he share the same view, or is he looking ahead to other fixtures? But I'll say good day to some people in the live chat. Then a topic before we get into the match. You mentioned trophies there, Larry. But George, good to see you as always, mate. Justin here from the Supporters Club. Hope everyone is well. All good, mate. SJ, as always, good to have you in here. Rob from It's a Football Thing. Do appreciate it. And Box, of course. Appreciate everyone joining us. Make sure you do get all your thoughts in regards to the match preview and sort of the other topics we're going to discuss. And please do leave a like on the video. They'll be very much appreciated. And Box goes into my next point, which we're going to discuss later before we get into the match preview. The FA Cup has just become the main priority, in my opinion. Stop the City treble. We started mentioning trophies there, Larry. And I think I've been sort of flipping and flopping between who do I want to win the league, Arsenal or City? What's the lesser of two evils? What are the pros and what are the cons? After seeing what Manchester City did to Bayern Munich this morning, the realisation of them winning the Champions League is very real. Now, yes, they would likely have Real Madrid in the semi-final because there's a situation where they have Chelsea, but there's a very likelihood that they do play Real Madrid, that you assume the winner of that will get into the final. And now if Manchester City are in the final against, let's say, an Inter Milan or Napoli sort of thing, it's a one-off game in a European final, of course, but it's very likely now that Manchester City are strong favourites for the Champions League. Now, I do believe Arsenal are going to win the league, so that would stop, obviously, the treble, which is a good thing. But now with the genuine realisation that City are within touch and distance of a treble, look, they've got 1 foot in the FA Cup final, for God's sake. I'm just thinking now I've confirmed my stance. I'm 100% aboard the Arsenal bandwagon. I'm fully behind Arsenal winning this league because at the moment I don't fancy us to get past Brighton in the semi-final, to be fair. And then against Manchester City at Wembley, I wouldn't really fancy that either. So I'm not too confident with the FA Cup. So let's say City Champions League, City FA Cup. My allegiances are fully in North London.
I think there would be something absolutely satisfying about Manchester United beating Manchester City in the FA Cup final. And that's the thing. I think if we don't want this to happen, let's twist it a little bit. Let's enjoy this. Let's make sure it's Manchester United that stops that treble. Because at the end of the day, they can do a double. They can do... and let's not forget, 3 in a row is also on the cards.
Yeah.
Manchester City doing really well. They've got an opportunity here to... really, I hate to say it. I mean, look, they're a long way away from 20 titles, but in terms of modern history, they're setting the tone for younger fans and what team they'll go up to supporting. Because when you're a young fan, you follow the winning team. You just do, particularly from an overseas perspective. So Look, if United are going to stop this treble, let's actually stop it ourselves. I don't trust Arsenal. I think
It was
City are
when
favourite for the Premier League.
Box brings up, it was going to be my next point. In 1977, Box, we beat Liverpool in the FA Cup final to stop Liverpool doing the treble. Very close. I re-jog my memory. I'm positive it's 77, but 78 very close. 1977 FA Cup final. To beat them 2-1 at Wembley. And ultimately, Arsenal can say the Premier League is in their hands. City can say the treble's in their hands. Well, ultimately, it's in our hands to stop the treble as well. If we beat Brighton and Manchester City over 2 games or in 2 games, the treble isn't a possibility. So ultimately, that is the one positive we can look into it. But the FA Cup final against Manchester City, I would not fancy that. I wouldn't enjoy watching that at all. Maybe if we got a 3 or 4-0 lead in the 92nd minute, I could maybe start to enjoy it. But I just would not enjoy anything about that day. That would be absolutely horrible, especially if it's not sort of potentially on their path towards a treble. But look, I'm sure we're having that discussion in a week's or a couple of weeks' time when we have a far clearer picture of the Premier League and the Champions League setup. But all things Europa League and Man United against Sevilla. It seems like the 50th time we've played Sevilla in the last 5 years. Just feels like that sort of team we do get drawn against in the Europa League. Just your feelings ahead of it in regards to Barcelona had a big game feel, but ultimately I go back to, well, that was in round of 32. Like, was it really a big European fixture? In name it was, in situation maybe not. This one, Sevilla, maybe not as big a name, but quarterfinal of European football. So just your general thoughts ahead of this match.
My general thoughts are, I can't believe it's only the quarterfinals. The Europa League is such a long competition. And that's quite frustrating. And I'm looking at United's fixture list and I'm just thinking, still a lot of football to play. And that's the thing that worries me a little bit. Trophies are important, but I think winning the FA Cup trumps winning the Europa League. I think United are good for top 4. I think the Europa League is the competition. If you're Erik ten Hag, the Europa League's probably the most dispensable, if I'm being honest. I think FA Cup, there's something about that trophy, for me at least, and I think for most fans, to be fair, that there's a rich history behind. I think there's something that goes into, in terms of United folklore. This was the season where Manchester United turned it around, winning the FA Cup. I don't feel the Europa League really, at the end of the day, it is a second-tier competition, and you can't shy away from that. Winning the championship.
While we're only 2 games away, we're only 1 game away from, or we're at semi-finals at Wembley. But you know what I mean? 1 game away from Wembley in regards to the final. Okay, only 2 games away from lifting the trophy. Now in the quarterfinal, we've still got pretty much a mini season before the Europa League final. I'm just thinking, is it in Erik ten Hag's eyes maybe a bit of a clearer path to a final in the Europa League, or clearer path to a trophy compared to Brighton and Manchester City?
It's still hairy. I mean, in the end of the day, you still got the likes of Juventus and Roma in there. You got good teams. Yeah. Oh, not Roma anymore. Roma still in the Europa League.
I think they are. No, maybe not. I should be looking at the other side of the draw, but maybe I'm just like Erik ten Hag, just looking at the fixture ahead of us, and that is Sevilla.
At the end of the day, I still think neither are straightforward. You got both of them still in there. So Juventus and Roma in there. I knew I was paying attention, Tom. At the end of the day, winning the FA Cup and beating Manchester City, who, let's be honest here, they're the best team in the world. Whether they win the Champions League or not, they're the best team in the world. Beating Manchester City comes with something. And I think Manchester United's long-term goal, what we all deem to be success, what Erik ten Hag will deem to be success, is securing the 21st Premier League title. Well, getting a habit of beating Manchester City is definitely going to help you get there. So I think in terms of this season, but also for coming seasons, FA Cup for me. And I don't think United can afford to continue to fight on all fronts. Just saw the news that's broken actually in the last 30 minutes or so. Marcus Rashford is going to miss a few games. Well, that's our most lethal goal scorer that's not available. We can't afford to keep fighting on all fronts. I almost wonder, does he go to rotate this side now? Does the Europa League almost take a back step given what's ahead?
Well, we'll get into starting 11s, so that'll be a nice segue into the next topic. So do get your starting 11s and what changes you would make, or would you heavily rotate or go full strength? Do let us know your thoughts in the chat. Adam here saying we should be winning the Europa League now with no Arsenal. We're the best team in the tournament. Look, that's what gives me hope and a little bit of sort of direction towards the Europa League. I think we are favourites. I don't think we're favourites in the FA Cup. Now, would love to win the FA Cup, and I do see a situation where we can. But I do fancy this in there. But Rob also coming up with the right point. saying winning a trophy is still a big ask. And it's 100%. I think when we won that trophy against Newcastle in the Carabao Cup, we thought, yeah, no, go get a second one, go get a third one. Ultimately, it is still very hard. Well, we could dominate for the rest of the Europa League and be done by VAR in the 92nd minute in the final. Like, football is a funny game, and who knows what the future does hold. But I think it comes back to our point, Larry, in regards to the start of the season. If we weighed up, if someone wanted to roll the tapes back and asked us what we said a successful season would be, it would have been a trophy in top four. We are very much on track to do that. So regardless of what does happen, as long as we avoid disaster in these next couple of weeks, we will look back on sort of what should be a very successful season regardless. Fingers crossed we can make an extremely successful one. But time will tell. But I'll go into my starting 11. I'll bring mine up first, and I'll talk you through it. I think it is pretty much straightforward, and I would be shocked if it's anything different. Maybe it's always the flip of a coin at right back who's going to play there. But I think this will be pretty much close to it. So I'll bring it up here. I haven't heard the latest on Luke Shaw's injury. I'm just going Malacia. I don't think Luke Shaw will be available. If he is, still, I wouldn't lose any sleep over Terrell Malacia playing. Back four, then again, right back, flip a coin. I'll go Diogo Dalot. Some people go Wan-Bissaka. I don't have a preference at the moment. Whoever Eric Ten Hag, whatever side of the bed he wakes up on, I think that's who he chooses. He's right back at the moment. Centre-backs do pick themselves. Will be interesting in regards to Harry Maguire, in regards to how Eric Ten Hag views the rotation. Is this the second game of the week, or is this the most important? Potentially there is a change there, but you assume Rafael Varane was rested against Everton for this match. So I assume it would be that back four. Casemiro obviously walks back in. Then you could make a case. I know we have a discussion about Bruno Fernandes in terms of his sort of best position in this midfield setup, which we'll get into in a little bit. I think Sabitzer will keep his spot over McTominay. Just in rid of this game, I think the European feel has a little bit more of a football feel and a technical feel to it, which I think Sabitzer would suit more than McTominay. And then I think this is our strongest front three without Marcus Rashford. And you could ultimately, Larry, with this front three, I'm assuming your front three is very similar. We'll get into yours in a sec. Obviously, Rashford's goals and goals win games. That's what you need in your team. You need goals, of course. Football-wise, in regards to playing and sort of linking up play and sort of playing the most attractive football, there is a case that this front three is stronger than one that would include Marcus Rashford on the left, just in regards to getting on the ball and playing football.
I agree 100%. I think with Rashford, and I've maintained this stance where I think he's in a purple patch. I think he's playing the best football of his career. But in terms of a footballer, something's still missing for me. I don't know if that's being unfair.
He's improved a lot for me this season.
He has improved.
In that aspect.
He's improved a lot. No, he has improved a lot. And he's a top player. World class. If he can maintain this level, he's world class. Like, you can't argue with the numbers. But when you're talking, like you said, when you're talking about like close control technical footballers, I think the three that we've got in your front three there potentially allow United to play that link-up, one-touch football a little bit better. I think Rashford is capable, and I don't want to be unfair to him here because let's also remember Rashford hasn't had the benefit of playing with Martial a lot this season. And I think with Rashford and Martial, should have Martial been fit, I think we would have seen even Rashford go to another level. But I think it's a valid question, and I wonder, can Sancho or Anthony or both make us feel like we can get through the next few games? I think in terms of ability, Sancho's got everything to have a positive impact. In terms of goals, I think Martial's got the potential to limit the loss of Marcus Rashford. But it's up to these boys. They got to do it on the pitch.
Yeah, definitely. Well, sometimes you obviously never wish injury or hope for injury on any player, especially a Manchester United player. But sometimes players, in terms of their squad player or someone sort of looking for their opportunity, they do rely, like Marcus Rashford relied on Anthony Martial and Will Keane getting injured against Midtjylland all those years ago. You sometimes need sort of that star man to get injured for your opportunity. So is Jadon Sancho going to take that? It's up to him. He's obviously going to need a big performance, in my opinion, on obviously Friday morning, Thursday night in the UK. But Larry, I'll bring up your starting 11 if you're going to talk me through it and talk the listeners through it. Very similar, but obviously changing shape, and obviously Bruno Fernandes will dominate a lot of the discussion here, I think. But obviously Wan-Bissaka, Dalot, flip a coin, but just that slight sort of tweak in midfield. Talk to me.
Yeah, look, more or less, Tom, we're the same way. The shape changes. I think Sabitzer has been playing as a 10. Look, I think the way Ten Hag sets up is fluid, and I think there is fluidity in this. But ultimately, I think we're going with the same players, and for good reason. Can I say I think McTominay does deserve to start? I think he's been really good the last 2 games. And I'd have no qualms if he goes that way. But I think there's an argument to say he rests Casemiro. I do. And that's just for the reasons
Off the
that I
back of
mentioned
2 clean
earlier.
sheets from a defensive side of things. Now, Casemiro obviously brilliant defensively, of course, but just in terms of the evidence we had from Eric Ten Hag at the start of the season, now, yes, a different situation in terms of new signing and fitness and Eric Ten Hag finding his feet, of course. But off the back of 2 clean sheets and 2 good performances, is there a case? We're all just saying Casemiro's back, and of course he is, and I fully expect, and I think it's the right thing to throw him in. Is there a situation that, in regards to rotation and sort of weighing up priorities in the league, is there a situation where Casemiro actually doesn't play?
I think it's possible he doesn't start. I think it's more unlikely, but I think it's possible. I think McTominay's played well, and the dynamic between the thing is, I'll be really interested to see because Bruno's played and occupied a deeper role. How does that change when Casemiro comes back in? Because in terms of ball progress, like Bruno the other night, Tom, 102 passes. Like that's unheard of in Premier League football. Like that's world-class elite controlling a tempo of a football match. But he did it from a deep position. How does that change when Casemiro comes back in? Because I think it's really interesting. Like if I say to you who's the better footballer between the two, I'd probably would lean towards Bruno in terms of just technicality on the ball. And I think Bruno's range of passing is better. But can Bruno have that same level of impact with Casemiro deployed in the 6? Be really interesting to see how Ten Hag gets that balance right.
What's your
Because I think
latest
Kubica has to be
perception?
the advanced midfielder.
You talk about advance and weighing up that, and I fully agree in terms of Casemiro is that number 6, of course. But if you look at sort of the impact on games and sort of, as I say, goals win games, and you do win the match in the final third, we see Casemiro as this 6, and of course that's where he does take up a lot of his positions and sort of start the play and his defensive part. But in terms of, okay, Bruno can start to create things from maybe a little bit of a deeper position. What's Casemiro's strength? Not strength this season. His strength is sort of all across the board, but he's getting in the box and he's scoring goals. So I'm thinking maybe that, who knows how that they'll sort of partner up in sort of that midfield pivot, but maybe there is a situation where Bruno is the one creating for Casemiro and not Sabitzer. Maybe Casemiro is the one, I wouldn't say not playing in a number 10 position, but Bruno takes more of a, not a 6 in a defensive position, but a 6 in a Michael Carrick sort of sense in terms of an attacking position. And Casemiro is actually well, in my opinion, he does get forward and sort of play a lot higher than what I think a lot of us do sort of think.
He does get forward, absolutely. And it might be, and this is the thing, if you can recall, I think maybe it was 2 weeks ago, you and I actually brought up to you Bruno as a 6. And if you remember, you actually were quite dismissive.
I like the idea. I don't think Bruno wants it. That's why I don't think Bruno. I don't think Bruno in his career. Look, that's what I remember when I used to play. When I used to play midfield. I was in an attacking midfield. I used to like to get in the box, score goals, and sometimes we were chasing a game, and the coach would put me back a little bit deeper, just in front of the back four. And in my mind, I hated it because I wanted, in my mind, to get forward, score goals. But it wasn't actually always an attacking substitution. We're chasing the game. We used to get on the ball a little bit more. And I think that's with Bruno Fernandes. I think he will want to be in and around the box and scoring goals and affecting games there. But sometimes the manager will want him to come back and get on the ball a little bit more. And it's when you're just naturally, just geographically on the pitch, a little bit close to your goal, it feels more defensive. And I don't think in terms of Bruno, I don't want to say petulance, but just his attitude and intensity, I think he's more sort of edgy to go forward.
I think he's an absolute natural at this deeper role. And I think for the longevity of his career, it will serve him in good stead. I think, how old's Bruno now? He's 28? He'll be 29 later this year, Bruno Fernandes. So in terms of the Portuguese, when you think about the longevity of his career, he could potentially play at United for another 5 to 6 years simply because he's got the capability of playing deeper. And the fact that he can already do it at this age, I think that holds him in good stead. But it's good to have that versatility. Let's not forget Christian Eriksen returned the other day.
Yeah.
And now we're in a position where we're dying for Eriksen to come back because we knew what he offered. But now we're in a position where we're like, well, actually, Bruno can actually play deeper. And he does it really well. And potentially he does it better than what Eriksen does. So it's an interesting conversation to have. And the fact that neither of us have put Eriksen in our starting 11, again, I think we'll see Ten Hag's intentions for the rest of the season here. if he rests Bruno and starts Ericsson, which I'd be supportive of, to be honest, because I don't think there's a big drop off.
Well, my next point, I think it's sort of going to allude into this. I'll just bring this comment up from SJ here. Fingers crossed that Casemiro and Bruno don't get cut. They're both on yellows. So if they get booked in this match, they'll miss the return leg in Sevilla. And very often we have the second leg at Old Trafford, but the second leg is going to be in Sevilla. So with those two, oh God, wouldn't you be shocked if Casemiro misses another game through suspension? You can see him getting a yellow card. But that is a situation the manager's going to have to weigh up.
Here's a bit of trivia for you. The last team we versed, Real Betis, are also from Seville. So Manchester United will probably be travelling to a stadium that's 5 kilometres away from the last stadium.
And we played Real Betis during the World Cup as well. It was the second home in Spain. I'll tell you what I want to do. Maybe someone in the live chat can sort of do this for me and sort of save me the research. But I want to see whoever's bottom in the La Liga, if you weigh up our games, maybe after we sort of deal with Sevilla, we'll see how those two games go. If you weigh up our points, they give us 4 points against Barcelona for a win and a draw and 2 wins against Betis. If we would actually survive relegation or if we would be above the team coming last in Spain, let's say we get 2 wins against Sevilla, there's 6 points. In terms of our handful of games against La Liga opposition, where we would finish, only playing a handful of games because it seems every second week we're travelling off to Spain. But
every team we've versed in the Europa League has been Spanish, right? It has been. It's been Barcelona.
In the knockout stage, yeah, of course. Yeah, Barca, Betis, and now Sevilla. And I don't know if there's any Spanish teams on the other side of the draw.
Let's not forget we versed Sociedad in the
Sociedad in the cup, in the group stage, 100%. So it's interesting because last 2-3, well, this year obviously, but even last year, we do have a sort of decent record against Spanish opposition. But just in terms of our makeup as Manchester United fans, we feel we have a horrible one, and ultimately, over time, if you weigh out the percentages, yes, we do have a bad record in Spain or against Spanish opposition, but it is getting better now. I don't know if that's just down to just coincidence or Eric Ten Hag's.
Our Spanish record has been crap because we ran into the best club football team that's probably ever existed and ever will exist. I think that. Not enough is said about that Barcelona team. I don't think there is enough to talk about them. Like they were brilliant, just covered They had the perfect combination of brilliant players in their positions, but also had a manager who knew how to get the absolute most out of all of them.
There is though in those big games, but I still remember it was about maybe 2005. You had teams like Villarreal. I think we had 2-0 draws. It was Wayne Rooney's first season. You look before that, Deportivo La Coruña with the battles with Ruud van Nistelrooy. I think it's always hard, but ultimately the reward is there when you go and beat a team from Spain. Definitely good shout here from Box. Larry, just before we do move on to start to wrap up. That front three we're talking about in terms of the positivity around it and how they can link up. Thinking about the front three, I've totally forgot about Weghorst, considering he started the 19 games in a row before Brentford. I was thinking Rashford, Garnacho, Palestri missing out, not Wout. Good problem to have. Now, ultimately, we can have another discussion about the future of Wout Weghorst next season, but it is good because nothing against him, but he was first name on the team sheet every time we're doing these previews for 2 or 3 weeks. Now, ultimately, generally, I did like Box. I forgot that he was an option. And now he is an option, really, in terms of managing Martial's return. There is a possibility where Weghorst plays.
Yeah, and I think there's a possibility that Martial plays on the left. I don't think that should be something that's completely dismissed either. It's an interesting one. I think, with all due respect, Wout Weghorst, if he is to make this move permanent, his fourth choice. Again, full respect. He's got 2 goals for Manchester United, none in the Premier League. He started 19 games and he's pulled up 2 goals. And you can talk about doing a job and working hard and defensively, great. Yep, works hard, absolutely. Strikers need to score goals.
Yeah.
And he's just not doing the business. And I don't even think his link-up play is as brilliant as people will lead you to believe.
It's one of those ones like Peter Crouch or Marwan Fellaini. It's nothing against them, but when they do something very basic, just in terms of their natural body shape, it looks a little bit different, and you think, they don't really have that to the game. Yeah, it's slow, but it sort of looks a little bit languid. But we praise them for it. It's a good touch for a big man, and really, it just looks a little bit weird. So we give him a little bit of a backhanded compliment in regards to that. But ultimately, Weghorst has done well for Manchester United for what he is. It's not his fault in regards to the situation as sort of why we found ourselves in the position where he had to be the first choice. But be very interesting. But we'll have that discussion.
It's an interesting question for you.
A couple of trophies, hopefully.
Interesting question for you. So, I want you to think of every big striker that's played, at least in the last 10 years. So, Who are big strikers that come to mind? Lukaku is an obvious one. Drogba, I guess, was there a little bit. Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Peter Crouch. So currently we've got Vlahovic at Juventus, Osimhen obviously at Napoli. We were talking about Wout Weghorst. I've got a point here.
We got Haaland as well.
Haaland, yeah. Is it just like the nature of their body shape? Like Zlatan, out of the list of people I've given you there, Zlatan is the only one who I would say has an elite first touch, elite ball playing ability. The others, clunky, slow, either get in behind strikers who are good goal scorers, but none. Oh, Drogba was decent as well. To be fair, I thought Drogba was a good footballer. Well, Drogba and Zlatan. So let's say it was out of those two. Everyone else, it's it's not to say they're awful footballers, but not natural link-up play kind of strikers.
Just different traits. Your wingers are going to be quicker than your central midfielders. Your central midfielders are going to be better on the ball than your defenders.
But is it something to do with the body shape, like the size of them?
Yeah, I think how often do you see a 6'7" winger? Not often.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, but then ultimately Lisandro Martinez sort of bust that myth in regards to the narrative around when he was arriving at centre back in the English Premier League, but he suited it down to the ground. So it is one of these things that mean nothing, but there is something maybe deep rooted in it.
I think with Martinez, it'd be interesting. So obviously in the 2000s and even in the 90s, in England, the two striker systems were very common. And I dare say if Martinez had to play as a centre back in a two striker system, I think he'd get exposed a lot more. But I think with football the way it is, he's absolutely fine as a centre back. I'd even argue he's in the conversation for best centre back in the world at the moment.
No, definitely. And look, I think if a rival was tuned in here, they could say, "What are you talking about? That's Man United fans." And maybe there is a case of that, of course. But in regards to just what he's brought Manchester United, maybe that is clouding our judgment a little bit. But the difference he has made on and off the pitch to this team, for us, there is a case that he is the best in the world. He could easily flip that Rafael Varane. It's just been as good, if not better, than Lisandro Martinez this season. But both of them have just been, especially compared to what we've had to deal with over the last 5-6 years. In terms of, I thought Chris Smalling was quite good, but he did reach a ceiling. Chris Smalling was Chris Smalling. You had Phil Jones, Eric Bailly, Marcus Rojo, Harry Maguire, and Victor Lindelof never really sort of hit the ground running. So ultimately, centre back of us, since we've sort of last won the title, has been a bit of a weak spot. And ultimately, you look at any sort of successful team, the strong point and the most consistent sort of pairing is that centre back partnership, and ultimately, hopefully, that is coming back into fruition and will sort of allow sort of the platform to be built to go on and succeed. But ultimately, they're doing extremely well. Long may that continue, and fingers crossed, maybe can get our hands on another trophy or two before the season's out. Adam with a good point here. Thanks for doing the research. Elche is on 13 points. What would we be on then? In terms of what did we have against?
We beat Barcelona twice. We beat Sociedad.
Well, no, we had a draw against Barca, so 4 points against Barca.
Sorry, 4 points. Did we beat Sociedad in the return leg in the group stages, right?
I think we had to beat them 2-0. I think Garnacho, we beat them 1-0, I think. So I think 3 points against Sociedad, because I think we lost at Old Trafford.
4, 5, 6, 7. We beat...
2 wins against Betis?
We won both games.
Okay, that's 13 points. So if we get a point against Sevilla, we're off the bottom already in La Liga. So I think you can give us the Carabao Cup. You might as well give us La Liga as well with that win percentage. I think we beat Barcelona. We beat the team.
If United were playing in La Liga, I think there's every chance we come first.
Well, we I wouldn't say comfortably, but we deserve to beat the best team in Spain.
I think we would be. I can't guarantee, but I think we'd definitely be in the top 3. I mean, that's a given.
Yeah. Well, a lot of our hopes is just shitting on Real Madrid and Barcelona there. We do need Real Madrid to pull their finger up, make sure they sort of return to their European heritage and get that job done against, I'd love Bayern Munich to go and win 4-0 in the return leg, but if Real Madrid do end up facing Manchester City, fingers crossed.
Really poor performance by Bayern, I thought.
Poor, or as I said at the start, unfortunately, we don't like to admit it. Who's the best team in the world at the moment? Best team in the world have got to win a lot of games.
I thought Rodri's goal was pretty avoidable. I thought it was poor goalkeeping. What? Not poor goalkeeping. I thought he suffered from having short arms.
Yeah,
Well, it was
it's weird. It's
beautiful.
weird when you see Bayern Munich a goal go in and it's not Manuel Neuer in goal. I think just he's been an ever present over the last decade. And suddenly you see a new goalkeeper and then you think, hang on, what's happened there? Would it be different with Manuel Neuer?
Well, young
I'm not
Sommer's not
sure.
the same level. With all due, like he's just not. He's good with his feet, but he's not the same level of shot stopper.
Well, that's a discussion we're going to be having many times in the next couple of weeks in regards to David De Gea and any future goalkeeper in terms of weighing up those pros and cons. If you want good passing, well, the price you're going to have to pay, you're going to have to let one or two shots in. If you want the shot saved, well, you're going to have to deal with one or two bad passes. That is dependent on what Erik Ten Hag wants.
I want
But
it all, baby.
before we sort of wrap up, any other talking points? Obviously, Jude Bellingham, the Qatari bid has gone quiet in regards to the Glazers. We all sat
They're
here and said,
welcoming
okay,
third bids now. It's baffling. They're holding out for more money. They really are, and they're playing
you
a
say
dangerous game
baffling.
now, I think.
You say
Hey?
baffling, is it? You say baffling,
It
but
is
is it?
baffling. Yeah, I got it. No,
If they're holding out for more money,
that.
that sums them up to a T. That should be. We should have expected this.
Look, I don't think that they're not at risk of people walking away, but I think they might put themselves in a situation where there's only one bidder left. And if there's one bidder left, well, that kind of puts, and I would assume that would be Qatar. I actually think that puts Qatar in the driving seat. So instead of this bidding war that they've been hoping for, they might actually deter some people because they're just being quite greedy. If you believe reports that, what was the highest bid that we suggested come out? 5.5 billion. They're really holding out for that 6.
Yeah.
It seems.
But don't you think
are they prepared to walk away at 5.5 to keep United? Like they've come this far. Like how far do you go?
Yeah, I know. I completely agree there in regards to and it'll be interesting that relationship between the bidders.
How do they recover from this now?
They don't.
Like the Glazers, they have to go. They'll have to go.
But how are they going to recover from 2005 and those protests? They did recover. How do they recover from 2009 protest? They did recover. I just think it's one of those.
I think they've come too far. They've dangled the carrot too low down so that the United fans can touch it. And if they turn back now and have a poor summer, man, you thought the riots that happened during the shutdown when the Super League news came out, I think there's potential for it to get a lot worse.
I definitely agree with you there. George with an interesting shout here. I would answer this honestly, George, and I will. I don't know who plays for Sevilla. Now, I should know as a football fan, but quite frankly, I haven't seen too much of them this season, even in the Europa League, to be fair. However, Box reminds me of the one player.
I can tell you that.
The one player I do know, Larry, who does play for Sevilla. This is the discussion. Tellez. I don't like now. Yeah, we can say, "Oh, he's not going to make the difference." I just putting the hypothetical scenario into your mind, Larry, that it's 0-0 over the two legs. Tellez whips in a beautiful cross, and Sevilla win 1-0 off a header from someone else. Are you comfortable with a Manchester United player contributing to United's exit? Because I'm not. I don't. Now it's a rule that they're allowed to play. Crack on. That's the risk you sort of play. Sort of loaning him out to a club you're potentially going to play. I fully understand that. So I'm not sort of having a go at anyone, but I just don't like the rule.
Tom, with all due respect, Alex Tellez is shite. He will not.
He's not.
He's bang average player.
We wanted him over Luke Shaw because he was playing very well over Luke Shaw last season.
He wasn't playing very well. I thought Luke Shaw was awful and he was better. I don't think he's been good. He never put in a performance where I thought, yep, got a first choice left back here. Not one.
No, of course he never reached that level, but I don't think he's shit. He's a good player. He's a Brazil international. He plays in La Liga and sort of played for Manchester United. He's got something about him. He scored one of our best goals last season. He's got something about him. I just don't like the situation where, let's say that corner, they float a corner out to him and he bangs one into the top corner. I don't think you're going to be sitting there going, oh, well, no, we got knocked out by one of our players. It is what it is. No, I just don't like it.
It is what it is. Absolutely. He's playing for them this season. Why not?
Yeah, but we're paying his wages.
I think he was worth our time, so we sent him somewhere else.
Yeah, but in the Premier League, I'm just talking about the rule. We don't let Dean Henderson play against us because that's in the rule. That's sort of not allowed. The
Premier League's a different kettle of fish, though. The Premier League,
but football's football. Two teams are playing each other.
I get it, but there are different impacts. Like the Premier League, how much money you make, that literally depends on how high up the ladder you go, and you get more money for each single position. La Liga doesn't have the same impact, nor does the Europa League or Champions League. So there's not as much at risk.
Yeah, No. Suso, I remember him. God, back in the day, he's still at Sevilla. I thought he.
Suso, wow.
I guess he was young at Liverpool, so he'd been around a while. But I guess he was a young player. Did he ever go at Milan for a while? I forget. It might have been someone else. I forget. Boxer, their goalkeeper is quite decent. The Moroccan
Yusuf
Bruno,
El Nesri is a good player. I remember that name.
Which one?
Yusuf El Nesri.
If I saw the face, maybe I'd know all the positions sort of in potentially. But ultimately, I think with these sort of teams like whether it be Villarreal or Sevilla, they're just one of those. Now you could look at the league table and say they're not performing.
At Sevilla? No.
Sorry?
Is Nanuzai at Sevilla?
It's a good question. I just looked up their squad. Apparently, Yanazai is there. Good shout. Didn't he have the world at his feet that David Moyes says? And maybe not in terms of hindsight, but looking back, I did have high hopes for Yanazai. I was fortunate enough to meet him in Sydney on that tour in 2013. But he has bounced around since he left Manchester United, and it was the right thing for him to leave Manchester United. But he did well, not good enough at United, but it was unlucky. Maybe a different situation if he came through under Sir Alex Ferguson and Sir Alex stayed in that 13-14 season. How would Yanazai's career sort of maybe progress? I'd bet my last dollar that it wouldn't end up in Sevilla in 10 years. I think it would have stayed sort of at a far higher level. But interesting. Well, he's not our player, so I have no issue with him playing against us.
Yeah,
but
I think for Sevilla, it'll be Yusuf. I'm always going to butcher his name. Yusuf En Nesri. He is their striker. He's got 7 goals in La Liga. But look, they've struggled this season. This is their 3rd manager now. They've sacked 2 managers this season. They're in the bottom half of La Liga. I think they're 15th.
This might just go back to maybe Erik ten Hag rotates a little bit more than we think.
Look, I think every time we have come on here and said he'll rotate, he just doesn't. And but with the Rashford injury, like I listened to what Ten Hag said about Rashford's injury, and he said this is as a result of the compressed, congested fixture list. And like, yeah, I agreed, but I also look at it and I was like, yeah, Eric, you've had times to rest him this season and you just haven't.
Yeah.
So I mean,
it's been a criticism.
Take some responsibility.
Yeah, definitely. It's been my one, or I've had a few, but not bad criticisms, but definitely the highlighted criticism has been that squad rotation. We all said here around February, March, this is going to catch up. It's catching up now, and it's how we're going to deal with it. That'll be on the players and Erik ten Hag. But fingers crossed we can come through unscathed and set us up for a good second leg in Sevilla. I think it's Nottingham Forest on the weekend in the Premier League, and then I think the next game is potentially Brighton in the FA Cup semi-final, which is a huge one, which we'll obviously preview in great detail closer to the day. But saying all that, Larry, I think both of us quietly confident. I'll go 2-0 United.
I'm not confident. I don't know why.
Oh, okay. No, scrap everything we've said over the last 35 minutes. I thought we're full of confidence going into that.
I mean, on paper, we should beat them. But there's something about Sevilla versus Manchester United that has me a little bit nervous, Tom.
But, understandably.
I think, how will United respond without Rashford? That's the question for me. I think Martial's capable, but he hasn't played a lot of football this season. So will United have the capability of scoring goals without Marcus Rashford? That's fundamentally what it's going to come down to. And this group of players haven't really played. If Sancho lines up on the left, Anthony on the right, and Martial through the middle, that would be the first time that's happened this season in April. Yeah. How did all those players gel together? It's interesting. I mean, they would have had time on the training pitch this week, I think, just given that there's been a gap between the Everton match and here. I'll say 1-0 United. I think it'll be hairy. I think it'll be a hard game.
I'll take that box. A little bit more optimism going 4-0. Sevilla get punished. I'd love to see it. And nothing against Sevilla. I don't hate the club or like the club. It's not like a Barcelona or Real Madrid, but they do deserve
Martial
a little bit
will score,
of it.
I think. No, I think Martial will score.
Yeah, no, I back Anthony Martial. Obviously, well, he's got the Sevilla link, doesn't he? Obviously, been on loan there. And people mention the names. He got Nasri, Fernando. There's another name, Lamela as well. That they do have names, so maybe they.
Nasri's still. I thought Nasri's retired. Is he still there? He got really.
Actually, that's a shout out. I don't think Nasri, just in regards to a weight issue, I don't think he'd sort of get on the scales, let alone sort of onto the pitch at Sevilla. Maybe he is though.
Retired, Nasri. Last photos I saw of him, he looked like he ate himself.
Yeah, he was in no shape to be playing football, especially at this level. But maybe he isn't.
He could have been the ball himself.
Who's your favourite player who sort of let himself go or when they retired? Obviously, the prime example, obviously, Ronaldo, prime Ronaldo, or the Brazilian Ronaldo, and
Oh
rightly
yeah,
so.
he definitely let himself go.
After his career, I fully respect that and enjoy what and how much he has enjoyed his life. But the other ones, obviously, you got Wesley Schneider. Is a good one. He piled it on straight away. Eden Hazard's already taken that path, and he's still playing. So Eden Hazard's got a head start on a few people. But there are any other names that sort of...
There's always been that link with Hazard. Even when he was killing it at Chelsea, there was always something about him being a fat guy.
Oh, no, but now he's... And look, not fat shaming him. Of course, a lot of professional athletes and some of these sort of health-related issues, you don't want to poke too much fun. But ultimately, they are there sort of to be judged as professionals. And Eden Hazard at the moment, he's not playing football. And simply, Real Madrid will point at the reason around his fitness and sort of body shape as to a huge reason why he isn't playing football at the moment.
That's a sad
They bought him for 100 million.
150 million.
Oh, 150. There you go. No, it couldn't have been
the at 29 years of age.
Had to be 100 million. Maybe with wages and everything. But maybe the package was 150. But there was another one. Who was the? There was a United player. Really let himself.
Million.
Who was the United player? Karol Poborski. Whoa. He's enjoyed himself since he retired. Go have a look at Karol Poborski.
I've got nothing against these players blowing up though, because
no, it's just you don't often see it. So when you do see it, it just it takes you back a little bit. Definitely nothing against anyone.
I think Schneider has to be the winner, but he's proper round. He looks like Homer Simpson. But what I will say is the speed at which Wayne Rooney blew up from retirement was impressive.
He was just keeping himself together because he was training all the time. That just kept himself together. He was living that lifestyle when he was playing. It was just his physical activity kept him in shape. The moment that physical activity stopped, the lifestyle did catch up.
Rooney did an interview. I can't remember with who now. He did an interview and he basically said at the time that when he actually when he found out he was making his debut for Everton, he had breakfast at McDonald's that day. Had a sausage, bacon. I think it was either a sausage and egg McMuffin or a bacon and egg McMuffin. And then he's like, he'd learned more about nutrition as he went and he stopped doing that. But all the things that came out with Rooney in his career, when you consider what he achieved in the game, I just wonder if he had the level of commitment or professionalism that, say, Ronaldo did, Rooney could have done even more.
But you don't know, and look, I agree, of course. But you don't know. We've had the discussion, and fortunate enough to meet Brian Robson on a few occasions, and sometimes been able to talk to him about how do you think you would, because we always say, okay, name an ex-player to come in and fix our midfield. One of the answers is always Brian Robson. But then you ask the question of Brian Robson, how do you think you'd sort of cope in the modern game in regards to social media, the diet? Maybe why Brian Robson was so good was the drinking culture. Maybe that sort of benefited him in regards to his sort of mindset, in regards to enjoying his life. Would he enjoy the sort of the media responsibilities and the professionalism of a modern football world? Potentially not. So would that get the most out of his performances? Maybe not. So I'm just thinking one of those things with Wayne Rooney, maybe just that lifestyle sort of motivated him, kept him sort of in the right space mentally. And if he had to change that lifestyle, if he had to live like Cristiano Ronaldo, he wouldn't enjoy his life as much. And then if he's not enjoying his time as much, does he perform the same? Potentially not. So it's one of those ones, I think everyone's different. There's no correct answer. But it is an interesting one because I think sometimes you do go back and look at Wayne Rooney's career and there's been a big discussion on TalkSport, unfortunately, the last couple of days in regards to Riyad Mahrez and Mohamed Salah over David Beckham, which that's opened up a whole sort of new can of worms. But ultimately, Wayne Rooney is one of those players, I think, achieved it all. Greatness, of course, won the lot, but still quite, and all the records to back it up individually at the international and club level. But again, a little bit overlooked in regards to maybe a little bit underappreciated on what he actually did do.
Absolutely. Rooney is only appreciated by United fans. It's the same with David Beckham, to be fair. I think...
But even United, I think maybe we sort of somewhat underappreciate him.
I don't think so. If you watch David Beckham play, no one could... Like, his delivery of a ball... The thing is, the best prototype or the best example to talk to how good David Beckham was is, look at what Trent Alexander-Arnold does. He is lauded and praised for the bend of the ball. But the thing with Trent's delivery, and I'm not saying this because he's a Liverpool player, I'm saying it because it's a fact, because I can recognize a good footballer when I see one. And Trent's a good footballer, don't get me wrong, but Trent whips the ball into an area, and most fullbacks do this, and wingers. They put the ball into what's called danger areas, and that's what they're trained to do. Beckham looked up, saw where the head was, and he put it on the head. He saw where the foot was, and he put it on the foot. Whatever type of pass or whatever range of pass, Beckham could hit it. His free kick taking ability, that cannot be understated. Like, I think, again, we're all about the highlight reels. Free kicks are underappreciated because there are not many players who have the success rate that Beckham had.
Here's a shout for you and a question which I'm not comfortable having. I don't want this chat, but it is there and it is very prevalent. James Ward-Prowse is one free kick away from either surpassing or equaling David Beckham's Premier League record of whatever amount of free kicks that is. If James Ward-Prowse equals that or surpasses it, which you look at the sort of likelihood of that happening, it's very likely that's going to happen. Is he a better free kick taker than David Beckham? Because numbers would back it up. And
Beckham
then how could you argue?
Premier League at 24? 24.
Oh no, they're older than 24. No, they're late 20s. Well, I think that's one of my things in regards to stats, in regards to appearances, goals, and someone's age at a certain time. I have no idea. David Beckham, he must have been.
Ward-Prowse has been in the Premier League longer, I think.
Yeah. I'm sure if you weigh up appearances, obviously, but he goes into that discussion in regards to you can't hide from that fact.
Also, it's worth remembering that Beckham didn't take every free kick for United. There were other players who took free kicks. Dennis Irwin at the time.
I remember there was one. It was Sebastian Veron's first season. I think it was an FA Cup. I think it was a Premier League game at Old Trafford against West Ham, and David Beckham was on the bench. And once Sebastian Veron played, Veron put this unbelievable free kick into the far corner. What do you think? The cameras went straight away, straight to David Beckham on the bench in regards to what's his feelings going to be. And obviously it didn't work out for Veron. It was almost the end of sort of David Beckham's time at United as well. But that is an interesting shout in regards to the stats around David Beckham. Yeah, he had all the players. Ryan Giggs took a lot. He had other players, one Sebastian Veron, obviously Eric Cantona, when Bex was coming into it. SJ 335. Yeah, so ultimately, if you weigh up percentages, maybe David Beckham could potentially continue that one. And Andy, good to see you, mate. Interesting shout here talking about Brian Robson. Robbo wouldn't cope with the modern game. I stood behind him in a pub queue back in the UK, and he pulled out a tightly packed roll of 10-pound notes, 3 inches thick. He liked to drink with his mates. Well, even that's back then. Obviously in Melbourne. How long ago were we in Melbourne? Less than a year ago. Brian Robson did go out one night and for a long time and survived the night and was up for breakfast in the morning. And just think he drunk a lot of people under the table. And fair play to him. And ultimately that is why I think maybe just in his mindset.
Players are doing it now. I have no doubt. I just think that they're doing it at their homes. But they're drinking. Yeah. Trust me.
Oh yeah, but not like what Brian Robson and sort of those players were doing back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, but I think the world's changed. I don't know if people. I mean, I could be ignorant here right now. I don't see people getting hammered that way anymore.
No, come to the pub. You'll see. I should have seen Celtic were playing Rangers at the pub on Saturday night. The Manchester United fans were upstairs. The Celtic fans were downstairs. I'm telling you, Larry, this guy stumbled out of the pub, had a few too many. However, I don't know if he had a few too many or just the fact the guy must have been 95 years old and he walked out with a Celtic shirt on singing. I'm telling you, this guy was well into his 90s and he was loving his life, but I think he didn't have long left, but he sure was enjoying it. I'm not sure if Celtic won the league or not, but
I like that you're planning his funeral already.
Oh, no, the people around me, I think maybe Ash was in the chat. I forget, a few people would have seen him and fair play to him, obviously loving supporting his team. It really looked like he's having a great time, but my God, it was interesting to see stumble out of the pub. A guy who, genuinely, he is very close to getting a letter from the Queen. Obviously not the Queen now. If you reach 100, do you get a letter from the King now?
Oh,
King
Tom's going to get us kicked off YouTube in a second. If you live beyond 100, you get a letter from the monarchy.
Yeah.
Oh, do you?
That's what I've been told. I'm still waiting on mine, but it's what I've expected.
I won't make it. I'll tell you that for free.
Therefore, let us know if any of those players you do think that we just discussed there will make it to 100. But until then, hopefully everyone did enjoy that. A little bit off the walls at the end, but do appreciate everyone's interaction in regards to the match preview and all things Manchester United. Please do hit that like button on your way out. Subscribe if you're new. Larry, pleasure as always. Now, the match is on 5 a.m. Friday morning. So that's 7 a.m. Finish time for us here in Sydney. So we'll very likely be live at full time. So make sure you hit that notification bell on YouTube so you do join us when we do go live. And then we'll chat to you then. Until then, Larry, have a good one.
You too, mate. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone. See ya.